as review and to get on the video, we're starting lesson 1.6 today. What we don't get done, we'll finish on Monday. And then, as I pointed out, this is the end of the notes, which means we're looking at chapter 1 test towards the end of next week, Thursday, Friday. All depends if I throw a trash ball day in there or not. Okay? So, in lesson 1.5, you had to do compound inequalities, right? Mm-hmm. Compound inequalities where there's an and or an or statement, and you had two inequalities to deal with. Well, in absolute value equations and inequalities, which is what we're dealing with today, we run into the same thing. We have to have two equations or two inequalities. And we'll talk about why as we go. So, first of all, absolute value. What do you guys remember when I say absolute value? What words come to mind, or what definition, or what do you do, or...
Positive number.
Okay. Absolute value is traditionally a positive number?
Yeah.
Okay. What else? What shows absolute value?
Those bracket things.
Okay. Those straight bars?
Yeah.
Right? Straight bars show absolute value. When you see a number in the absolute value bars then tell us to make it positive is what we think?
Yeah.
Now, by definition, do you know what the definition of absolute value is? What the paper says? Okay. A good definition to know for absolute value, the distance from zero. So as in the distance from zero on a number line. And honestly, I don't even know exactly how the paper states it, but absolute value of a number is the distance that number is from zero on the number line. Now, what do you know about a distance? Okay. Distance must be positive, yes? Do you talk about it is a 5-mile drive home or a negative 5-mile drive home? It's a 5-mile drive home, right? Or, you're walking 500 feet or, you don't talk about negative distance.
Distances can't be negative.
Okay, so thus, since distance is not a negative, it's always positive, that means absolute value is the positive distance there. So, absolute value of a number is the distance that the number is from zero on the number line. Thus, since distance is always positive, absolute value will always be positive. Okay, so those bars tell you the positive. Now, what if the number inside the absolute value bars is already positive? Keep it positive, right? If it's negative, switch it to positive. Okay. Another piece of information we have to talk about when we talk about absolute value is we have to talk about extraneous solutions. And I would like to think they came up in Algebra 1 somehow, somewhere. The extraneous solutions are, notice what it says there, extra solutions. They are extra solutions that do not work. In certain situations, in absolute value, it happens, because absolute value bars have to make something positive, right? Sometimes you end up with an extraneous solution. So a solution that comes up as a solution, but then when you check it, it doesn't work. And so we will have to practice checking some of our answers because we will have some extra solutions, some extraneous solutions. And then the important point right here. In order to solve absolute value equations or inequalities, you have to remember this. The absolute value needs to be isolated to solve these equations or inequalities. So in order to solve, our first step is going to be, okay, how do I get the absolute value bars to be the only thing on their side of the equation? And then, once you have the absolute value bars isolated, then you're going to, and I'm going to write it in here, you're always going to set up 2. And you're going to set up 2 equations or inequalities. Okay, so those are going to kind of be our steps today. I'm going to use those steps over and over, but we're going to start by getting the absolute value by itself. So you'll hear me repeatedly asking you, is the absolute value by itself? Is it isolated? And then once we do that, we will set up 2 equations or inequalities. And the idea, guys, If we talk about the absolute value of 5, okay, here's 0, here's 5, here's negative 5, just setting up a basic number line. What's the absolute value of 5? It is 5, right? Because it's a distance from 0. What is the absolute value of negative 5? It's 5. So anytime there's absolute value, there's two options in an equation inequality setting. And that's what I want you guys to consider. And that's why we set up 2. So, let's look at problem 1. What is the solution of each equation? It says graph it. We'll look at graphing on some of these, not all of them, but. And it says absolute value of 2x minus 1 equals 5. So my first step or equation, whatever you want to think about it, is, I'm going to even put it over here, step 1. Isolate the absolute value. I may be writing off the screen. I'm writing off the screen, aren't I? Sorry. Okay, so step 1. So when I say isolate the absolute value, is the absolute value by itself? In other words, are the absolute value bars and what's inside of them the only thing on that side of the equation? Is that true here? Yeah. I mean, this is example 1, right? Of course, it starts off easy. It's already just on the left, absolute value of 2x minus. Step 1. Step 2 then is to set up 2. In this case, it's going to be equations. In other problems, it could be inequalities. Okay? So those are my steps. We're going to set up 2 equations and inequalities. Sorry, giving you guys a moment to write, I realized. The first equation is always the given equation. So what was my original equation? 2x minus 1 equals 5. Notice I dropped off the absolute value bars. Okay, once you start setting up these equations, you drop off the absolute value bars. I'm going to use the word or, just generally speaking. The other equation.
2x plus 1 minus.
Not exactly. We change one sign. And it's not the sign in the absolute value. It's the sign of what my absolute value equals. Let me zoom in on this problem. So it says I had absolute value equals 5. I set up the absolute value equals 5 or the absolute value equals negative 5. Those are always your 2 equations. Whatever's in the absolute value equal to the positive and negative of the other side. And then we solve. 2x minus 1 equals 5. How do I solve 2x minus 1 equals 5?
Add 1 to both sides.
Okay. Add 1. So then I have 2x equals 6. And if it's 2x equals 6, we're going to
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2. And then you get
3.
X equals 3. So X equals 3 is an answer. Or there's another answer, right? It's not necessarily minus 3, though. Have you done the work? Okay, if it's 2x minus 1, what do I do? We're going to add 1. And so then it becomes, it's negative 5 plus 1 this time, right? So negative 5 plus 1 is?
Negative 4.
Negative 4. Divide by 2. And X is? Negative 2. So I have answers of 3 and negative 2. So don't just assume I think there was a math mistake up here that caused the problem. But don't just assume that they're going to be the same number, different signs. Now, again, I'm not a crazy big fan of graphing this, but we still need to talk about it. It officially said to graph this. How do you graph x equals 3 and x equals negative 2? Two dots? Yep. That's exactly what we need to say. It's x equals 3. Where does x equal 3 on a graph? Okay, I just set up a number line from negative 3 to positive 4. In order to graph x equals 3, we're going to put a dot on 3. It's not less than, it's not greater than, it's just a number. To graph x equals negative 2, we're going to put a dot on negative 2. And there you have graphed it. And now you see why it's not a huge graphing deal, is it? But we need to talk about it, okay? Questions there? Okay. Try B. Get started on B. Start off asking yourself, is the absolute value by itself? You gonna take care of them there? There's always pencils to be found in a math classroom. Or do them in pen. It's your notes. I don't care how you do them. Okay. Was the absolute value by itself? Yep. It's already just absolute value equals a number. So absolute value by itself. So we're going to set up
two equations.
2. What's the first equation?
3x plus 2 equals 4.
3x plus 2 equals 4. What's the other equation?
3x plus 2 equals negative 4.
Okay. It's 3x plus 2 equals 4. How am I going to solve Michaeli, right? Sorry, I started questioning my head. Is it Michaela? Michaeli. Okay, Matt. How do I solve 3x plus 2 equals 4? Say what? Not add 2. Subtract 2. Yep, you got it. If it's 3x plus 2, we're going to subtract 2. So then 3x equals 4 minus 2 is 2. If it's 3x equals 2, what do we do to solve? We're going to divide by 3. Now, don't overthink this, guys. What is 2 divided by 3?
2/3.
2/3, right? Don't go fancy decimals or anything. It's just 2/3. So x is 2/3. Or, do my steps change any? Not really. It's still 3x plus 2, so we're going to subtract 2. 3x equals, what is negative 4 minus 2?
8.
Minus 6 if we're adding. 3x equals negative 6. We're going to divide by 3, and x is negative 2. Okay. I'm not going to make you graph those. I mean, you know, you feel the desire to practice graphing that, more power to you. Again, I don't think that's where our graphing struggles are, if we have any. Okay, so that was kind of our introduction section. What's different in this next section?
You have an extra 2 numbers.
Okay, there's extra numbers around, essentially. There's extra numbers at the beginning, meaning that step 1 of isolate the absolute value, it's important now, isn't it? Last time I just kept saying it, and you guys were like, really, Mrs. Sargent, there's nothing to do. Leave us alone. But I keep saying it because I'm trying to get you guys to get that step stuck in your heads. So, first step, isolate the absolute value. So as I go to isolate this absolute value, let me zoom in on A. Think of this absolute value of like a variable or something. So if this was, say, 3A minus 1 equals 8. How do you solve 3A minus 1 equals 8? That wouldn't be your first step, though, would it? If it's 3 times A minus 1, your first step would be to
add your 1 over.
Add your 1 over, right? Because that's what you need to think. This is 3 times something minus 1. You guys know your first step as, okay, I'm going to add the 1 over. So then I still have 3 times my absolute value, and it equals 9. Is my absolute value by itself? No. I moved the minus 1. Now I need to move the 3. It's 3 times this absolute value. So if you think 3A, how do you get that absolute value or that A by itself? Divide by 3. If I divide by 3 on the left, divide by 3 on the right. And dividing by 3's, what are these 3's going to do? They cancel, right? Absolute value of x plus 2 equals 9 divided by 3 is 3. Now is my absolute value by itself. We've made it. We're there. So once you get your absolute value by itself, what do I do now? Do I just subtract 2 over? You could, but I encourage you to take a step before then. What am I going to say? It's absolute value equals a number, so we need to set up 2. One equation is the given. X plus 2 equals 3. Or, what's the other? There you go. Still x plus 2, but it equals negative 3. It is important that you follow these steps. If you just solve that and never set up 2 till the end, you're going to be in trouble. Or if you set up 2 without getting the absolute value by itself, you're going to be in trouble. Okay, you guys know how to solve if it's x plus 2, right? If it's x plus 2, we're going to do the opposite and subtract 2. What are my answers? Okay, 3 minus 2 is 1. Negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. I kind of have been writing my answers kind of fancy, haven't I? X equals 1 or X equals negative 5. You realize, Math Excel, you can just, if they just want the 2 answers, just put 1 comma negative 5, right? You don't have to get fancy with this. Math Excel won't let you, actually. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now you guys are ready to walk me through B? Two times the absolute value of x plus 9 plus 3 equals 7. What needs to be, that's step 1. What do you think, Mac? Yep, subtract 3. So we're trying to get the absolute value by itself, right? So if it's 2 times that plus 3, easiest thing to do is move that 3. Subtract 3. So then, 2, absolute value of x plus 9, equals 4. Okay, next step. Got 2, absolute value equals 4. I was going to make someone else do it here. Why it's always so quiet? Unless I force you guys to answer. What's the next step, Jocelyn? Okay, we've got to keep getting that absolute value by itself, right? So if it's 2 times absolute value, divide by 2. So then, absolute value equals 2. I have absolute value of x plus 9, and it equals 2. What is that next step?
Make 2 equations.
Justin says make 2 equations. Absolute value equals a number, make 2. What's one of the equations, class? Yeah. Let you guys answer the easy one. X plus 9 equals 2, right? What's the other equation?
X plus 9 equals negative 2.
You didn't even let me call on anybody. X plus 9 equals negative 2. I'm off the screen. Don't let me do that. Okay, I only changed one number, right? I'm going over this, and some of you guys are going to mess this up horribly when we get to homework. That's why I'm trying to make sure you guys are following along and know your steps. Okay. If it's x plus 9, what did you guys do? Yeah, subtract 9. So, 2 minus 9, negative 7, or negative 2 minus 9, negative 11. Okay. Now we've got a third type of example. What's different about these next examples? Okay, so 2 things. There's an x on both sides, and the directions now say check for extraneous solutions. Guess what? That relates. The fact that there's an x outside of the absolute value on the other side, that's the reason we have to check for extraneous solutions. Okay? Technically, I mean, we could get technical and say we should have been checking for extraneous solutions all along. But here's where it really matters. Okay? All of our other solutions would have worked. Here, we're going to run into some extraneous solutions where maybe one answer will work and the other answer won't work. Okay? Now, basic steps are the same. I'm going to start off by telling you to get the absolute value by itself. As we look at A, what do I need to do to get the absolute value by itself? Nothing, right? It's already absolute value equals everything else. So, absolute value is by itself, and we're going to then do what? 2. Now, everyone can get the first one. The first one is the same, right? Drop absolute value, it's just a given. So, 3x plus 3 equals 4x plus 5. Or, I would always go ahead and set up the second one right away. Okay, what have we been doing? Okay, changing the equals to negative. So what's in the absolute value stays. So that means 3x plus 3 stays. Now, Jocelyn said changing what it equals to negative. I'm going to change that a little bit and say changing it to the opposite. Just because you could have a minus sign in the middle. And so like right here, what is the opposite of positive 4x and positive 5? Negative 4x and minus 5. So you change the signs on the right side or on the side where there's no absolute value. So if you see a minus sign, it now becomes a plus sign. Okay? So just be aware of that. I realize that doesn't happen in either of these examples, which is why I need to make sure I say it. Now it just comes down, we have to solve this stuff. I don't know, what do you guys want to do here? If it's 3x plus 3 equals 4x plus 5, which way did you move your variables? Subtracted 3x or 3? The 3. So you subtracted the 3, which means you're going to subtract the 4x. Okay, and that's a personal choice, right? She's okay with getting the negative variable, she'll deal with it. If you don't want to get the negative variable, subtract the 3x, right? What, as a group, what do you guys prefer? Or do you have a preference? Okay. Okay. Okay, so you guys will just go with the flow is what it's coming down to, because knowing the, okay. It doesn't matter to me, so, I mean, if we want to go with, let's get our variables to the left, then subtract 4x, that's fine. Then I end up with 3x minus 4x is negative x. I still have plus 3 equals 5. And then if you haven't already, since it's negative x plus 3, we'll subtract 3. Now, by going this way, and this is a good thing to demonstrate, I have negative x equals 2. I'm not done though, am I? If it's negative x equals positive 2, what does x equal? Negative what?
I mean, the x is like a negative 1x.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. I thought you were saying the answer was negative 1. I was like, there's 2 there. Okay, so you can think of it as divide by a negative, multiply by a negative, flip the sign. So one of my possible answers is x equals negative 2. Or, now we've got to do the other side, right?
This one's weird.
This one's weird?
Yeah.
Oh no, you get a fractioned answer? You'll survive. Okay, so if I try and get my variables on the left, how do I move a negative 4x? Add 3x plus 4x is 7x plus 3 equals negative 5. If it's 7x plus 3, subtract 3. Negative 5 minus 3 is negative 8. And this is where you say, man, it's not going to work out to be a nice, neat answer. How do we solve for x?
Divide.
Divide by 7, and x is negative 8/7. Now, what do we have to do yet?
Check for extraneous.
You have to check for extraneous solutions. Okay? You can't just assume that both answers work. Now, what do I mean check? Put it back in the original problem, yes? Now, I don't really have room here. I can write it out on the board if you guys want me to. This check can be a check done in your head. It doesn't have to be a written out check. Okay? But you have to actually go through and do the checking. The fact that it was absolute value of 3x plus 3. Well, what's the first answer I'm going to put in? Negative 2, right? So I'm going to say the absolute value of 3 times negative 2 plus 3 means 4 times negative 2 plus 5. So I'm going back to the original given equation. So start in the absolute value there. 3 times negative 2. Negative 6 plus 3. What's negative 6 plus 3? Negative 3. And what's the absolute value of negative 3? 3. So my left side is a 3, yes? Now, go through and think through on the right. 4 times negative 2 is negative 3. I don't have any absolute value bars to make that positive. So what did I just discover? Okay, negative 2, we just got 3 equals negative 3, which does not work. So negative 2, yes, I should see the work there, but then I should see that answer crossed out. 3 does not equal negative 3. Now, the other one, well, it's annoying because it's a fraction, but officially you should check it. You can assume it works if you want. In that, oh, if one of them doesn't work, the other one often works, but that's not guaranteed. Okay? So if I put this other one in, it's 3 times negative 8/7 plus 3, the absolute value of that, equals to 4 times negative 8/7 plus 5. Now, if you wanted to, you could use your calculator and go decimals a little bit, couldn't you? That might be the easier option. But I don't want to do this. Ugh. I'm being lazy when I say that. Negative 24/7. If I'm trying to add 3, what do you have to add fractions? You guys are all going calculator. In order to add fractions, we have to have a common denominator. Common denominator is going to be 7. How does 1 become a 7? Multiplying by 7. 3 times 7 is 21/7, right? Negative 24/7 plus 21/7, negative 3/7. But we were on the left side, and the absolute value of negative 3/7 is positive 3/7. Check the right side. 4/1 times negative 8/7. Well, multiply across, negative 32/7. We need to add 5, denominator of 7. How do you make that denominator of 7? Multiply it by 7. 35/7. Hey, guess what? Negative 32/7 plus 35/7? 3/7. And this time, it's positive equals positive, isn't it? So this time it works. Okay? There's a lazy part of me that says, well, if the other one didn't work, this one should work. But this is your official check. Okay? Did some of you make it work with the decimals? Okay, you could have used your calculator and made it work with the decimals. I'm not going to say that's not an option. Okay. B. How much do you want me to solve this out, I'm wondering? What would be the 2 equations we would set up? Oh, wait, back up. What am I supposed to ask? What's step 1 I'm supposed to ask? Is the absolute value by itself? Is the absolute value by itself? It is. Okay, so what are the 2 equations I set up? Because that's the place I really want to make sure you guys are good. I have a slight disagreement. I don't know if you did it on purpose or accident. Yeah. Okay, so the first one is stays the same, right? 5x minus 2 equals 7x plus 4. Okay. Here's the important one to get. What's that second one, Reed? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Max. Okay. Did you guys get what she said? She left the 5x minus 2 as is. Change the signs on the other side. So negative 7x minus 14. Now, are you guys comfortable solving that? Okay. If I go through it real quick, this time I'm going to do it the other way. Subtract the 5x over. So then I have negative 2 equals 2x plus 14. Then to get 2x by itself, I'm going to subtract 14. Negative 2 minus 14 is negative 16. If 2x equals negative 16, divide by 2 and x is negative 8. Or, on this other one, since I have a 5x and a negative 7x, I would rather add 7x. 5x plus 7x is 12x minus 2 equals negative 14. If it's 12x minus 2, add 2. 12x equals negative 12. Divide by 12 and x is negative 1. Here's the good news. Wait, am I done? No, because we have to check. Good news. We don't have fractions to check this time at least, right? That's comforting. Okay, I'm not going to write this out this time. I'm just going to point. Put in the negative 8. 5 times negative 8, negative 40. Minus 2, negative 42. Absolute value of negative 42, positive 42. Okay, put in negative 8 on the other side. 7 times negative 8, negative 56. Negative 56 plus 14. Well, and here's the deal I know. It's a negative. So is that going to work? No. 5 times negative 1, negative 5, minus 2, negative 7. Absolute value of negative 7, 7. Plug in negative 1 on this side. 7 times negative 1, negative 7, plus 14, 7. Does 7 equal 7? It does. So again, we got one answer. Okay, real quick, before we call it quits for the day. Look at C. Can absolute value of x minus 5 equals negative 6 be solved? Why or why not? Definition of absolute value is the distance from 0. Can you show me a distance of negative 6?
Nope.
No. So can this be solved?
Nope.
No. Because absolute value cannot equal a negative. So the answer is no. Why or why not?
Absolute value can't equal negative numbers.
Absolute value cannot equal a negative. Okay? So, Monday, we will talk about absolute value inequalities. That's the one section we haven't done. We have to talk about how to know if it's an and statement or an or statement, and then we will review what we solved yesterday. Okay? So we'll finish those. You should have some work time, although it wouldn't hurt you to go ahead and work on the equations in homework, right? Anything with equations, you can go ahead and do. Inequalities, I would save till we talk about in class on Monday. Okay? And then hopefully my quarantine students are watching this, and I will be excited to see you guys back on Monday as well. So, everyone have a good weekend.